Hello one, hello all. I am your host, Ray Harkins, and this is 100 Words or Less, the podcast. Thank you for joining us on another week of introspective and hopefully entertaining and interesting conversations with people involved in independent culture. If you do not know the show, then welcome. If you already know the show and you listen to it frequently, welcome again. Nice to have you. Let's pull up a chair. Let's have some coffee. So November is a special month in the fact that this is our fundraising month. And when I say fundraising, I've been giving this show to all of you, the internet at large, for free for over 2 years. That's not changing. That is always going to be there. This thing needs some cash to operate. And I'm not talking about a lot of cash. Like realistically, it takes me about $100 or so a month to run this thing. And that includes the storage fees and hosting fees. That includes me paying Tom Richfield, our absolutely incredible producer and editor, some cash because, he puts a lot of work into this. He makes sure that this conversation not only sounds good, but flows well. I mean, fortunately, I'm basically perfect and I very rarely mess up. So his job is relatively easy. Anyways, I'm being sarcastic. Basically, I'm coming to you, the listener. There's so much stuff you could be putting in your ears. There are so many things you can be doing right this very moment, but you're choosing to spend it with me and our guest. And that is a very, very powerful thing. And what I am asking you to do is take the power of money, because realistically, whatever we spend our money on is the thing that we define as meaningful or powerful or worth something. And in this internet weird economy that we all live in, PayPal and money going from bank account to bank account, sometimes it feels weird that you're not even spending money. Like when I buy stuff online, either through Amazon or other places, a lot of times you don't even feel like you're spending money because you're just looking at digits. And it sometimes doesn't have that tangible feel. So what I am asking for you, throw some money at the show. Visit 100wordspodcast.com. On the right side of the page, you will see a yellow button that says donate, or you will see a link that says donate to the show, click here. Basically, there's two options. There's one is a one-time donation, which I could care less. If you're chipping in $2, $5, $10, whatever it is, I appreciate it. And there's also a recurring subscription where basically it's like a magazine. You're like, yeah, I'll toss in $3 a month. That's fine. And some of you already do that, and it's so amazing, and I really appreciate that. And I send everybody free stuff. So if you donate money, I will give you free random stuff. So I really appreciate it. I'd like to give a special shout out to Eugene from California, a friend of mine. I think he felt challenged by the last week's episode. I kind of called out people who listened to the show, but regardless, he just did it out of the goodness of his heart, and he donated to the show. So thank you very much, Eugene. And I haven't even talked about our guest. The guest this week, for those of you that are probably just listening to the show for the very first time, because this gentleman is a very popular gentleman in the world of independent music right now. His name is Jake. He goes under a name called Front Porch Step. And I didn't ask him how to pronounce his last name. So Mcelfresh, something like that. Jake, he does a solo project under the name of Front Porch Step. And I got hooked up with him. We had some mutual friends, but then his publicist wrote me and was like, hey, I would really like for you to have a conversation with Jake. And I was like, okay. I hadn't met him. I was familiar with his music. And so I was like, okay, let's get into this. So he was in Southern California. He was recording some songs at a local studio, and we were just able to make it happen. And holy crap, am I glad that we did that. It's very similar to the conversation that I had, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago with Dan Lambton from Real Friends, where I really like being able to speak to a person kind of before they've crested, so to speak, where it's like the popularity is still rising and it's still kind of reaching this sort of fever pitch of either if it's like they're a band or artist is on the eve of releasing their first like full length, or they've released their full length, but then now it's like the tours start to come and more exciting things are happening. I feel like I hit Dan at that pivotal moment in his life, and I pulled out a cork and he was able to discuss stuff that he's never talked about before. This is exactly what I felt like Jake and I experienced. So many things that he was able to discuss in a long form sense of the word and be able to just express himself. Yeah, it's incredible. So I want to get some other intricacies out of the way, and then we'll dive into the conversation with Jake. So visit propertyofzach.com, our amazing media partners. I really can't thank them enough for spreading the word of the show. And like I said, visit 100 Words Podcast, donate to the show. Enough about pitching and all that stuff, let's just go to the conversation with Jake. I'm very excited that we got this raw and uncut version of him, because I could tell he was ready to talk, and I just happened to be there. Here's my conversation with Jake, and I will talk to you afterwards.
Well, I see you standing there, and your eyes are unaware that I've been staring at them all night, wishing the brain behind them cared about the way you make me feel, or how your smile makes me nervous, or how the fact that you exist makes me feel like I have a purpose. I'm sick of lying in your bed.
Your music.
While we're both laying down.
So, I think Jake from Pure Noise was the one. I've known him for a long time. So he sent me your stuff and was like, hey, sign this new dude. I think you'd be into it. Check it out. And it was one of those things where I was like, listen to it. I was like, okay, cool. It's well done acoustic music. And then doing further research where I was just like, oh, you're a hardcore kid from the Midwest. That was the impression that I got.
Yeah.
The notion that you are a acoustic musician, so much gets put on people because of that, where it's just like, oh, dude, so you're going to be writing about girls for about 10 years of your life. You're going to be like, you're going to fit this one hole in the music world, and that's kind of it. Do a lot of people like sort of put those expectations on you, where it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty typical what you're doing, Jake? How does that kind of sit with you from that perspective?
I think it varies,
Yeah.
because there's the varying opinions where it's just like, oh, like either that's just sappy, like romantic, like just whiny brat music, and then
Sure.
there's the people that still may not like it but respect it. They're like, hey, he's talking about that stuff, but he talks about it in a way that's like different from the way other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Because the example I've used before is like where other people say like I love you. Like my music might say like I love you, and whenever I think about you, I think about slitting my wrist because I love you so much. Like
Right.
I'll say this shit that people would never put in a song.
Sure.
Because they think it's too vulgar or too out there, and I don't really care if it's too out there, because if I'm feeling it now, I've never cut my wrist before, but I just use that as the most like kind of
It's a shocking metaphor.
the
sure.
best, the best way to put it out there. Because I mean, I got told by a lady once. She was a vocal coach for a bunch of really big artists. It was before I got signed, and I sent her my record. And she told me that I'm a brilliant songwriter, but I needed someone to sit with me and tell me what not to put in my songs. And I basically told her to go fuck herself, because I'd never heard something so offensive in my life. 'Cause she was saying like certain lyrics.
Sure.
And I know that I have certain lyrics that are like, a little out there, but if I felt them when I wrote them, like, what's the point of playing music? Like, isn't that the beauty of making music? Is it's something like you're creating. And that's the beauty of music to me. I don't understand why you would write anything else than what you're feeling.
Sure. With that being said, like because you're obviously putting yourself out there in ways like you were talking about, that obviously people may be offended. They may they may think it's outrageous what you're saying. Is it in part to like provoke a reaction from people, where it's just like whatever, when you're getting a lyric down and when you've got that song down, you listen back to it and you're like, oh wow, that could hit a nerve. Like, are there certain lines that have stuck out with you? I mean, after you've written it?
Well, yeah, like the song Private Fears in Public Places, that song was written to tell a girl like everything, basically I would be willing to do everything for her and please her in every sense of the word. And like, not just sexually, but in all sense of the word. I just want to make her happy. I would do anything for her.
Right.
And one of the ending lines of that song is, dive my face between your thighs until I cannot feel my lips. And a lot of people hear that and they're like, that's disgusting.
Right.
But to me, when I wrote that song, it was just like, like let me do everything for you. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, just let me make you feel good in every sense. I love you. I'm madly in love with you. And like half of these people are like, that's disgusting. And then they go home and like eat out their girlfriends. Like,
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, they're offended by something that you are, basically that is your explanation of what you are going through. And that is a common practice.
Yeah.
People perform cunnilingus all the time.
they do. And
Yeah.
this lady, I'm not going to mention her name.
Sure.
But the lady, the vocal coach who was telling me this stuff, she was like, that you'll never be on the radio with that, like songs like that. And I'm like, first of all, I don't fucking care about being on the radio, and you can be on the radio. And I brought up Kings of Leon. She's like, I love Kings of Leon. I'm like, what about the song Sex on Fire? And she's like, well, they do it they talk about sex in a beautiful way. I was like, in the second verse, he says the head while I'm driving. And I told her, like, he's talking about getting a blowjob while he's driving down the street.
Sure.
And she's like, well, he says it like he's not actually saying it, though. And I'm like, saying dive my face between your thighs is not saying let me lick your clitoris. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like,
you're like, I could have taken it more.
Yeah, you're contradicting yourself by saying, well, you're not saying it. Because I never, you know what I mean? It's really dumb. Because people care about genres too much. It's almost like racism, racial stereotyping with music.
Sure.
Because it's like, you're playing an acoustic guitar. You can't talk about going down on a girl.
Sure.
But Nicki Minaj can... I'm not talking about white and black here.
Right,
I'm talking about
of
music.
course not.
But Nicki Minaj can put out a song that says, I let him hit it because he slings cocaine. And no one gives a shit. Like, no one points that out.
Because it's part of that, like, it's an accepted... And it's an accepted part of that culture. It's
like, Eminem can say...
Of course.
On the Marshall Mathers LP... They say I couldn't rap about being broke no more. They didn't say I can't rap about coke no more. Slut think I won't choke no whore till the vocal cords don't work in her throat no more. And like, that's cool because it's rap. That's tight. Like, it's rap. Oh, that's shit, Eminem. You're edgy as fuck. I have an acoustic guitar in my hand and I say, like, you'll dive my face between your thighs. Like, can I feel my lips? You're disgusting, dude.
Yeah.
You're gross.
Sure.
You're gross. Like, what?
Right. It's a double standard.
It really is.
It's
and I hope you understand when I like compared that to racial
No,
stereotype.
I totally...
Like, it'd be like somebody seeing like, like a racist person seeing a black person, like, say, working as like a heart surgeon. Like, that guy can't do that. Or like, you know what I mean? Or saying Eminem rapping and saying he's a bad rapper just because he's white.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it comes to, I have an acoustic guitar, so I can't say things like that. They're not acceptable.
Right.
But if
certain things are off limits for you because it's not accepted within that singer-songwriter culture.
Yeah, and if I was a metal singer, like, it would still be cool. That line might be too soft if I was a metal
probably
band.
Be too soft. Yeah.
Like, well, it was like,
Well, because you're talking about your feelings. You're talking about a girl, and that isn't accepted.
Yeah,
in metal.
but I'm not talking about killing a girl and murdering her.
Right.
So it's not acceptable in metal.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting that. I mean, I knew that your lyrics obviously pushed buttons in people that weren't used to having their buttons pressed as far as, what you're playing. Do you still get negative feedback from those specific like songs and people coming up to you and being like, "Oh man, I don't know about that." Like,
well, you get negative feedback from everyone for everything. Like, not from everyone, but I'm saying there's always negative feedback. You never stop getting negative feedback. Name one band that everyone loves. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter if they're legendary. It can be Tupac, and someone will hate Tupac just because he's popular, and they want to hate him. Yeah. And it's just, I stopped giving a shit about negative feedback a long time ago because it's
definitely not constructive.
Doesn't have any. There are some people it's constructive if someone's like, hey man, that song is really beautiful, but I think that line's a little too inappropriate, and I think the song would have been much better without it. Like, I'll respond to them and, like, I appreciate that, but it's just how I write. I appreciate your opinion. Now somebody says, like, you're a gross piece of shit. It's like, who are you? Like, I don't care.
Right.
I'm not saying, I say that and I always have to, like, correct myself. When I say, who are you? Right. I don't mean that I'm better than you. Who are you? I'm from Porch Step. I'm cool. I'm saying, who are you? Literally, I don't fucking know you. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. Right. So I don't ever mean like that I'm better than anyone.
Right. You're not. This person is not part of your trusted
People always
circle.
say I correct myself too much and I care too much about what people think, but I don't want to. I offend people naturally, so I try not to offend people too much without them thinking I'm saying something that I'm not saying. Well, like when I said the racism thing, like I made sure, like I was like, wait, like make sure you understand what I'm saying. Sure. But of course, everybody will still take it the wrong way. Everybody will still fucking post something on Twitter or Tumblr about how I said something about racism, and they'll take it the wrong way because the internet's full of fucking assholes. And
well, I think what you're doing too is, I mean, you're putting quantifiers because you, I mean, in a form like this, you can express yourself more freely. I mean, if you were to write something like that, you yourself may edit it a lot before you send it off to, the print media outlet. But with this, you have to put more quantifiers and be able to add more context. So I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. And especially, because you're 21, 22 years old? 22. So
I had to think.
You're like, wait a minute. Because essentially, in certain respects, you are still finding yourself. Because you are in some sort of public eye, there's a lot of people that are going to, look at if you are, whatever, consistent in the way that you're presenting yourself, and you yourself are still, a moving target. It's like, I find that it's like so much attention is paid to people who are, whatever, between the ages of, 15 and 25. It's like that's the most volatile time in your life. Like what you do one year may be completely different than the next year. And so I feel like people that are, throwing arrows at you, don't realize you're just like, well, dude, you're still just figuring it out.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like a lot of the songs on the last record, people are like, say like If I Tremble. They're like, oh, that song's like, that song's kind of cheesy. Like, I wrote that song like 4 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that song and Lullaby weren't originally on the record. And my booking agent, Matt Pike, who's basically my Jedi Master, my Shook Knight, it told me he loves those songs and he thinks they should be on the record. So I put them on the record. And If I Tremble's, people love Lullaby, but If I Tremble's one of the most successful songs on the record. Like, especially I notice that live is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like people go nuts when I play If I Tremble, and it's like fuck that song. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
of course, yeah. You're like, that was so in my past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you go back to what you're asking about lyrics, my favorite part is that's very obvious. The "Die in My Face" line.
Right.
That it's something sexual. In the song "Runaway," I say, I'm so done with feeling numb that I've been pissing in the breeze. No matter how much these girls come, they never miss their chance to leave. And someone came up to me one time, they're like, hey, my friend was trying to tell me you were talking about ejaculation in that line. Is that true? And like, I told him you weren't. I'm like, it's totally true.
Right.
And they're like, what? And what that line is I'm so done with feeling numb. Because at the time, like, I just got cheated on. It's the same girl that I wrote the song Drown about. And Runaway was about the fact that she just found a boyfriend and they just started dating, and like, they're still together. This is like 2.5 years ago. And like she somehow found someone who was happy immediately after like fucking me. Like, like not fucking me literally, but like metaphorically.
Departing from you, yes.
Ruining my life at that point in time.
Right.
And that song is like, was about the fact that I kind of just started dating random girls and like would date a girl for a week and we'd have sex like after dating for 2 days. And it was just very, there's a lot of people, like I don't slut shame or anything like that, but I personally don't like having sex with a lot of people. Sex is still meaningful to me, and it has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with like saying people that do that is wrong. It's just my personal beliefs. But I was doing it just because I wanted to feel something. Like I wanted someone in my bed. Like I wanted somebody.
You
next
needed
to
a
me.
warrant. Sure.
Yeah, it was completely, and I'm not going to say that they weren't using me back. I kind of would just find a girl that was down to date a dude and basically just have sex all the time, and that's all our relationship was. And that's what I kept doing that. So that line, my lines are so metaphorical and so literal at the same time, because it's saying like, I'm so done with feeling numb. I've been pissing the breeze. Pissing in the breeze is doing whatever the fuck I want. Like, just going out there. And no matter how much these girls come, like they never miss their chance to leave. And yes, I'm talking about coming as in coming to me, but talking about like it doesn't matter. Like you can you can be the best in bed no matter what, but if the girl doesn't love you, she'll leave you, and that's what that line's about. And people are like, "You weren't talking about ejaculation, were you?" I'm like, "Yeah."
You're like 100%. I was
100% talking about ejaculation.
Well, it's interesting. 'Cause, I mean, you're bringing up a point I was going to bring up a little bit later, where it's like
I knew it.
Something I've noticed that happens to basically every dude that plays in a band, and because your lyrical content deals with a lot of this, where the struggle that, in particular, like guys that are more sensitive, like the way that you described how you view sex as being like still a special part of your life, in the sense of like, you're like, oh, I'm not just throwing this around everywhere. But the notion of girls obviously immediately paying attention to people who play in bands, like that exists, like that is a reality. And so has it been a struggle for you to be like, okay, I need to be able to see a girl for kind of who she is, or is she throwing at me because I do, because she's seen me on a stage, which is, for people like you and I are just like, that's irrelevant. We're just nerds that have played music. Like, why am I cool? So
Go back in time and talk to me in high school and see how you felt.
Right.
Like,
Totally. But so is that a struggle for you to kind of weave through the intentions of people, because they are, there's obviously, girls that exist that are just like, oh yeah, I would love to have a story.
For instance, I'm currently dating a girl, and I avoided her for a very long time because she was too nice. And when I say she was too nice, after some of the things that have happened to me, I try to avoid nice girls.
Okay.
And if a girl seems like she might be a shitty person, I'm probably going to date her just because I can foresee the future with that. I'm in control of it. Like, you know, if I find out like 3 days later, this girl that's known for cheating on guys cheats on me, I'm like, damn, Jake, shouldn't have dated a cheater. You know what I mean?
Right. It's
But
like a
this girl-
self-fulfilling prophecy.
And, you know, I'm not, we've only been dating for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, close to a month now.
Yeah.
So there's not like some, like, you know, we're still learning about each other.
Of course.
But what I'm saying is, I met her briefly, like, you know, on the internet, and then we met for sure in December when I played St. Louis at a Never Show, and she was very genuine, and I liked her instantly, and I fucked her over a whole lot. We never dated, but I would talk to her, and then like I would just stop talking to her for other girls because she scared the shit out of me.
Sure.
Because girls like her have the capability of ruining my life, and because I take things too strongly, because I do have to touch on more sensitive subject. I do have abandonment issues. I have, you know, I'm diagnosed with abandonment issues. No,
Really? You can be diagnosed with that?
Well, like a psychiatrist has like told me I have abandonment issues.
Okay.
When I say diagnosed, when I'm saying multiple professionals have told me I have. Now, there's other things I'm diagnosed with, like anxiety, that I just don't take medicine for.
Right.
So, but when I say diagnosed, I think it was for lack of better words.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
I don't just say like, oh, I have abandonment issues. I mean,
right. You're like, I have done the work on this.
Yes, I've been told by
right.
Dude, I've been to so many psychiatrists in my life that I don't even want to count.
Right.
I've probably been to more psychiatrists than Gene Simmons fucked girls like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
anyway, so that's different. But you were saying
when someone leaves me that I truly care about,
Yep.
that's why I would date girls that I consider like shitty people, because like, or that seem sketchy.
Right.
Not shitty people, because everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
The girls that fuck me over aren't shitty people.
Well, they're probably just
they just make shitty decisions.
Sure, and they're just disposable to you.
Yeah.
I mean, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, not
disposable
we're disposable to each other.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
I worry about this. I worry about that kind of stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of girls liked me when before I played music. Like, you know, I had girlfriends, but no girl ever finds me attractive, like from the get-go. Now, girls find me attractive now because they see me on like stage, or they listen to my music, so they're like, oh, he's hot.
Right.
But I'm aware of that. I'm not that physically attractive of a person. So most girls that I've dated in the past were girls that didn't like me physically, and we hung out a whole lot, and they just basically fell in love with my personality. Like
sure.
that. And they wanted to be with me.
Right.
It was never like, oh my god, like
dude, you are
Jake.
Jake is hot.
Right. Like, yeah, it was never like that.
Right.
So I worry about that. Like, you know, if I'll ever find a girl, and, you know, I don't know where this is gonna go. She's awesome. She's one of the coolest girls I've ever met in my life. I think it's one of the things where the worst thing would happen is we break up and she stays my best friend for the rest of my life. She's that cool of a girl.
Got it.
Because I avoided dating her for a very long time.
Right.
Because of how genuinely awesome she is.
Right.
And unfortunately, my mom and her are best friends. That's the worst thing in the fucking world.
Okay. That definitely that'll keep her in your life.
Yeah. No.
So but before we got too far, the abandonment issues, like, is this, so what was your family structure like growing up? Because you grew up in Ohio, correct?
Yeah. Let me make this clear first. Me and my dad have a good relationship right now. It's not always like that, but we have a good relationship right now. He's not a bad person. It's just he made some bad decisions.
Sure.
And when I always get the time, because I always get the time wrong and the age wrong, because the divorce lasted so long.
Okay.
My dad left my mom for a woman that lived down the street.
Okay.
And my dad was like he's still a Christian, but like was a huge Christian, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like practicing Christian.
Okay,
like he
sure.
used to go
to church every Sunday. Sure.
Yeah, he used to go to Chicago with a buddy of his and like preach to like, you know, juvenile delinquents and like prisoners and stuff.
Sure.
Like goes to the jails and like stuff like that.
Right.
And he was, I always looked up to him, and I kind of had like the perfect life. Like we would go like camping like every weekend. We'd go to Kings Island and Cedar Point. We had season passes to like Kings Island, which are very well-known theme parks. Actually, especially Cedar Point is known in the world as one of the best theme parks in the world. But I promise I'm not plugging Cedar Point. I'm just very proud to live in a state that has something that cool.
Right,
Ohio
right.
doesn't have a lot.
Right.
When he left, it was like
You were shattered.
shit got real, and like a very very juvenile way of putting it. Like shit got real. Like
Were you like what, 6, 7?
8 to 10.
8 to 10. Okay, yeah.
Because the divorce lasted so long. Like divorce
Sure.
lasted like 6 years.
Right.
Like it was a bad divorce. Like
Were they battling over custody for you as well?
to be honest, I don't know what
Yeah.
happened because
Well, usually when a divorce.
there was a gag order.
Oh, okay.
And me and my sister weren't old enough to know anything.
Sure.
So my mom would just like come home crying. I knew my mom wanted to keep us, but like my dad had the house. What happened? Like basically what was said is like my dad wanted to keep the house and live there with his like girlfriend,
Okay.
or who's now his wife.
Okay.
He's still with her, and I'm 22 now, so they've been together for a while now.
Yeah.
But and she left her husband for him.
Oh, yeah. So this was a very calculated move that they both left their families to start a new one.
Yeah, and he like didn't want to give the house to me and my mom.
Sure.
He wanted. Now my mom, either whether my dad wanted to take the house from us was some evil person, or he wanted us to like he wanted to keep the house for him and her and have him come see him. He couldn't accept the fact that me and my sister were not going to accept his new girlfriend. I still haven't. And now like I said, my dad would probably listen to this and get ticked off that I'm even like talking about her in a bad way, but it doesn't matter. That's what's weird. That's what's weird about me and my dad's relationship. Is I love my dad with all my heart, and I fucking hate his wife.
Sure.
I won't speak to her. I won't go in their house when she's home. I'll go in their house briefly because I don't want to see pictures of her. I don't fucking like her. I don't.
Does that stem from...
There was more than he left her for us.
Sure.
She she did terrible things. Like
Okay.
She fucking...
Yeah. I was going to say...
She was... I would be much happier if my parents were still not together and my dad left her and went and found a nice woman.
Okay, got it.
If that makes sense.
No, that does
I
make
would
sense.
accept if my dad got a divorce from her and found a nice woman.
Sure.
Then I could accept her as a stepmom.
Got it.
I won't accept this woman as my stepmom ever.
Got it.
I never will.
Okay.
And that's my choice, and anybody has a fucking problem with that can deal with it. My dad and my
Yeah. No. The only reason I was interjecting there was I was trying to identify whether or not because I'm a child of divorce as well, and my dad went through 3 marriages. He passed away a few years ago, but I completely identify with what you were going through in regards to the women that he would bring in. Like he would take me on dates. My dad was doing terrible things where we would go out on a date in the morning and we go out on a date at night. When I say he would take me along, and I would like mix up these girls' names. So it's like I identify I don't like this woman because he's trying to replace my mom, but like there's obviously a lot more with you. So that's why I was just trying to paint that picture.
Well, there was stuff like my mom went to the mall one time.
Yeah.
And she took it like she saw her. And the woman took a large Coke and dumped it in my mom's purse and like dumped it all over my mom.
Yeah.
Like she's just not a like.
Yeah.
But-
There's a lot of attached to that.
But what I'm saying is like my dad, I wasn't going to go near her. And I told my dad, like, it wasn't just about him leaving my mom. Because my mom has an ex-husband before my dad, who was my brother and sister's dad. And he cheated on my mom. But he knew what he did. He accepted it. And they got a divorce and they're best friends now. My mom and her first husband are.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I call him uncle. Like, he's like, he's more, he's been a part of my life. He's still like, he still makes mistakes, but he accepted what he did and like left my mom, and like they got a mutual divorce. And he's like, I cheat on you. We're getting a divorce.
Right.
Now I'm sure there was uglier things than that, uglier conversations than that.
Of course.
But I'm saying it still ended well.
Right.
I can't accept that my dad's still with this woman that did it and like the way it happened.
Yeah.
And like I said, if he would divorce her and like live on his own, I would go spend days at his house all the time. Like,
right.
and or if he met someone else later on, because he's married now. My mom's other ex-husband, he's married to a different woman now.
Okay.
And my mom and her are best friends, and I call her aunt.
Right.
So it's not.
So the abandonment issues lie directly from you feeling abandoned from your father because you had such a close relationship with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where like I can't go spend the night at my dad's. Whenever we hang out, we have to go eat somewhere or go bowling or go spend money.
You have to go out
because it's too awkward to have them in our house because with my mom there.
Right.
Because even though they get along, like they don't talk to each other. But
it's weird. Yeah.
They don't go like they can say hi to each other. That's
of course, they can be cordial but not social.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And I won't go to his house when she's there, so we don't hang out.
Yeah, you have to meet on neutral territory.
Yeah,
right.
like we go get food and like that's hanging out, but it's always spending money when we hang out. We can't ever just hang out. Like now, if I had my own apartment or something, he could come over. But me and my mom live in it. I'm the last of her kids to move out, and we both live in a 2-story house with like 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. No, 3 bedroom, 2.5 baths, and with a big backyard. And
you're like, I don't want to leave this.
Yeah, like why would I leave?
right. Especially when you're touring and you're spending so much time, it's like there's no reason for you to move out.
I don't make enough money to have a pointless.
Yeah, you're paying for a storage space. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. But when I say abandonment issues, it was like that's what I'm talking about. My dad didn't leave us, but he gave me an ultimatum. Like if you want to see me, you have to be with her. I didn't want to be with her.
Right.
So that was how my dad abandoned me. Was like he stayed with this woman that did terrible things to my family and basically ruined. She didn't go to her husband and be like, I'm in love with this guy. I want a divorce. And he didn't come to my mom and be like, me and her are in love. Like we want to be together. Like, she's leaving him. We need a divorce. It was done in a very bad way.
Sure. That is why all those issues exist. It was handled very poorly. I mean, it's always terrible hearing those situations, but I mean, obviously I presume that because of all those situations, like, when did sort of independent music kind of start to, infiltrate your life?
Well, that's what's so odd. It's like my dad leaving, and the divorce is one of the biggest things that has impacted my life and my mentality, because it really fucked me up mentally. When I say fucked me up mentally, like, I mean there was damage done because I never had problems at school, and I didn't know when I was younger that trauma could create like mental disorders. Sure. Which I knew, like, PTSD is obviously like a trauma-related mental disorder, but I'm saying I didn't know ADHD, anxiety, bipolar could all be. But then I found out that my dad has bipolar, so that might be hereditary, but I didn't notice it when I was younger. Sure. But basically got all these things, and before the divorce happened, there's like special kids that they think are going to do well. Like I was at a college reading level in the 4th grade. When I say that, I mean literally, like,
you were advanced, like, sure,
advanced, and I aced all my tests. Like, I did my homework. I was basically gonna be put in like special classes, like, not special classes like people with trouble, but people like preparing for college early kind of thing. And then the divorce started kind of happening, and basically my teachers in the 5th and 6th grade, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, were nice enough to pass me regardless because I aced my test, and that's all they cared about, because they knew what I was going through. But they were still annoyed. They're like, why don't you just do your homework? Like, because I would just goof off in class, get suspended, get in fights. Because what happened is earlier, see, there's so much to say. Yeah. When I was earlier, it would be like I would be crying in the back of the class, and people would make fun of me. And then it turned into like I'd be crying in the back of the class, and like some kid would like like mouth off to me, and I would end up like throwing like my book at his face and like getting suspended.
Well, dude, everything that you're describing, you were going through the 12 stages of grief or whatever. It's like you were mourning the loss of the structure that you had. So yeah, of course, it's like whatever, denial, acceptance, like all these steps you were going through, and especially from schooling, where it's like you were angry, and so at that point you were acting out, and
I smoked weed when I was very young.
Yeah.
Like very young.
Sure.
Like awkwardly young. It was like 5th or 6th grade I smoked weed for the first time.
Right.
And then started smoking cigarettes and started drinking heavily. For literally the child that I was, I drank very heavily.
Of course.
Now I've been straight edge since I was 15.
Uh-huh.
I'm 22 now. It's going to be 8 years in November.
Right.
But I still like I was very. I thank God or whatever the hell anybody else believes in that I found straight edge, because it honestly literally saved my life in the most non-cliche way possible.
Yeah.
But I used to get in fights a lot.
Okay.
When I say, I always have to make this clear that I'm not trying to act tough when I say I got in fights a lot, because I wasn't a badass. I got the shit kicked out of me a whole lot.
Sure.
But I didn't like taking shit from people. So it's kind of one of those things where I would get beat up. I'd go meet the kid somewhere, like, yo, I'm gonna fuck this kid up. And then I would get fucked up real bad.
Right.
And that kid would not get fucked up at all.
Yeah.
And then
It wasn't so much of a fight, but
Yeah.
you receiving punches.
And it's because I drove all that sadness, like this pure, like unadulterated sadness, like nothing could explain it better than just sadness.
Sure.
And depression. I forced it into anger.
Right.
And I started acting out against my mom. Like, I'm talking about like a 13-year-old kid calling his mom a fat cunt. Like,
Sure.
like
Pure rage.
And I want to fucking sob at the thought of the fact that I used to talk to my mom like that, but I didn't give a shit about anybody.
Right.
I used to steal like 30 packs of Natty Light from families, like houses, like, while they weren't looking.
Sure.
And like I would chug, because I've been in my friends' houses where they just drink regularly, so like their parents did. So like if there was like a 6-pack missing,
No one would know.
no one would notice, and I would just drink myself to sleep. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to be cool. Like none of my friends really knew I did this, because
You were just trying to find a way to cope.
It wasn't cool.
Yeah.
So I started writing lyrics, and like I always loved music, because my dad played guitar, and he still does. He plays country music.
Okay.
And he like performs at like open mics and like bars with friends, and like goes to bluegrass festivals, but he's never like really done much with it.
Sure.
Anywhere near what I'm doing, because he hasn't tried.
Right.
He just does it for the fun of it. So I always had Martins and like Gibsons around my house, and always knew like 3 of the basic chords. And so I started like writing songs, and I didn't even really learn to cope that way until I was like 17, because I didn't really start writing how I felt till later on. Like I wrote poems of how I felt.
Sure.
But like my mom was like, basically my mom would read some of my poetry, and not in a bad way, not like a bad mom, but a good mom. Like,
Yeah.
You need to show that to a psychiatrist.
Sure.
She's like, that's amazing, but like you need to show that to a
Yeah,
psychiatrist.
this seems troubled.
Yeah,
We're
like, you need to-
Jake, let's talk about this.
Because the first song I ever wrote that really was me putting everything into it was a song called So Help Me God, and it was on the So Help Me God EP. I took that EP down, so you can't buy it anymore, but I plan on basically re-recording, remastering most of the songs on there.
Okay, sure.
But the last line of So Help Me God, for instance, is this gunshot will drown out the noise in my head, but these bloodstains won't cover the shame in my bed, and I can't think about it because I don't have the time, because either way I'll lose my mind. And I wrote that when I was 18.
Right.
And it was basically, I'm so ashamed of the shit. Because what happened when I was 18 was I dated a girl. She was 16. I was 18. Everyone said it like, that's not a weird age difference if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody was like, don't date a 16-year-old when you're 18 because of maturity.
Right.
Because she's not mature enough. Because she turns 20 and I'd be 22. You
Yeah,
know what
that's
I mean?
not a huge age difference.
Yeah. But I did it the right way, because we were friends when she was 15, and I was like, just turned 18. And then when she turned 16, I asked her parents at her birthday party if I could take her
on a date, sure.
Well, here's the thing. I was like the good guy. I was a virgin when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like looking for wife material.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm going to bang this 16-year-old.
Yeah, can't
like
wait to you. Right.
So I was 18 and I was dating her, and we dated for like, I don't know how long we dated, but we basically decided we wanted to have sex because it was my first real girlfriend. I was like,
right.
Oh, I'm in love with her. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Let's commit to this.
It doesn't matter if I have sex with her, because I'm going to marry her anyway.
Right.
So like, God will forgive me.
Sure.
Basically, and we had sex, And then we dated for a little bit longer, and then she left me for someone else. And I found out that she was cheating me the whole time. Not only was she cheating me the whole time, but I was like her third or fourth sexual partner. Like, she's fucking lied to me about everything.
Yeah.
So, like, she took something from me that was so sacred to me, and not just religion. Like, I was stoked to have sex, but I wanted to have sex with somebody that mattered.
Sure.
You know, you don't want to nobody wants their first time to be with, like, somebody, you know, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but somebody that's going to fuck them over.
Right.
Just, you know, I hear all these stories about, like, you know, people like losing their virginity to their best friend because they both wanted to lose their virginity. And back then I didn't want that, but now I think that like that'd be much tighter.
Okay.
It'd be much tighter than ruining it to somebody that lied to me.
Right.
So that song was about like, you know, these blood stains won't cover this gunshot. Killing myself will end everything, but these blood stains, like, you know, the blood all over my bed, I won't cover the shame. Like, you know, my mom finds out that I lost my virginity. Like, you know, like shit. I cared too much at the time, but
sure,
all this, but
and so
imagine that morbidness.
Yeah.
Times like 3 when I was like 13.
Right.
Just terrible things.
Of course. Well, yeah, you were in the midst of a breakdown, and you were just trying to find something to hold on to.
Yeah.
In any capacity.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, I mean, your city and area. I mean, the Midwest isn't notorious for like hardcore and punk. Like, you know, there are obviously pockets of it, but how did you kind of discover it? As far as like, you know, was it like through school, through friends?
I don't know what's up with you and people like Matt Pike that don't think the Midwest is notorious with hardcore.
Well, you have Modern Life is War, and like I said, you have pockets. You have Louisville, Kentucky. You have portions of Texas, but
Cleveland and Cincinnati,
of course. I mean,
Dayton,
right. No, that's true. That's true.
I grew up in like, you know, I grew up with a brother. He sold out, which doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't give a shit.
No, he's dead to us. It's okay. I'm just kidding.
My brother's 36 now, but like I'm saying, he's 36. So
okay.
I grew up when he lived with us. Like, you know, I didn't know what it was at the time.
Okay, but you were
like,
exposed to it.
Hate breed, like Snapcase,
okay.
Strife,
right. All the great mid-90s stuff, sure.
Yeah. And then, you know, just fucking integrities from Cleveland. Like, what are you telling me, like, hardcore isn't apparent in the Midwest? Go fuck yourself, Ray. I'll defend that shit.
No, I will, and it's true, obviously.
I know it's not necessarily hardcore, but... but ringworm?
I should be more specific, like, because I mean, what's the name of it? Newark, Ohio.
I live 45 minutes from Columbus.
Okay, and that was outside of my awareness, so yes, you can... Fuck me. I completely agree. I totally understand.
Dude, fucking, first of all.
Yes, of course. Ringworm Integrity.
Ringworm's Hammer of the Witch is one of the best records, hardest records to be put out in a very long time.
I agree.
So, and that's from Ohio.
So I see. So, but basically the point I'm trying to make
don't fucking insult me, Ray.
I am not insulting you.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make was that like the introduction was obviously like so you kind of saw it out there with your older brother and you were like, oh, like that's interesting.
Yeah, hardcore was definitely. I don't know why I left that out. Hardcore was definitely an outlet because because I know you can relate that you can go. There's great hardcore bands. I guarantee you from your time, from when you went to shows when you were 15, that nobody gives a shit about, nobody knows about.
Of course,
because they were a bunch of your fucking friends that didn't have the drive to do anything with it. Because everyone can like. They're not big at all. They may have never toured. They may have only played hardcore.
Release one 7-inch and then fall into the vault.
They meant everything to you,
of course.
So when I tried to like Ohio hardcore was like huge.
Yeah.
But because there seemed to be hardcore bands everywhere. Okay. But just because no H2O or like Madball came out of Ohio, people are like Ohio. People say that to me like Matt, like who came out of Ohio? Yeah. And I don't have I don't have a. Even like there's no like have heart like
of course
fucking Franz from Turnstile's from Ohio, and I think Turnstile's one of the best hardcore bands to come out in a long time.
Sure.
And you can't tell me Franz isn't one of the biggest reasons that band is amazing live because he's probably the most entertaining band member to watch.
Sure,
period.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's Ohio.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, hardcore had a big.
And so was that like your first introductory to independent music? Was that like mid-90s hardcore?
I used to. That's how I started playing shows. Was this guy named Adrian, who was an old friend of my brother's. He booked hardcore shows, and he was the first. His name's Adrian. He was the first person to be like, "Dude, your music's great." And I was like, "The fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Right.
And he's like, "Dude, you need it." Like, and he put me opening up for shows. He'd give me like $20.
Sure.
Like I was a 15, so he'd give me $20. That was fucking money to go see movies.
Yeah, right.
And he'd give me $20 to play like 4 songs before the show started.
Right.
And I used to open up for hardcore shows all the time. That's what I did.
Right.
And that's how I got started playing shows, was for hardcore shows.
Sure.
So
And did you immediately, like, once you got up there with your acoustic guitar and you started to do that in an audience, you know, I mean, it's like, obviously the sort of knee-jerk easiest reaction or easiest comparison that people can draw to you is like, oh yeah, Chris Kraba and Dashboard Confessional, because obviously it's like he came from the hardcore scene as well. But it's like, was it easy for you to kind of go up there and just be like, and perform?
Not at first.
Okay.
Not like I do now. I
Right.
don't mean say I'm good now, but I'm saying it wasn't easy to go out there and do it like
Sure.
I do now, because I was young and naive and ignorant, and I did the same mistake that a lot of people still make now at 22,
Right.
is where they go fucking find a radio song that's a top 40 hit and play it just so they think people, because there's like a lot of opening bands that they've opened up for me, or I've seen. They're like, that will, like, you know, cover fucking like Smash Mouth and be like, like, you know, everyone will know the words, so sing along.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, I covered on YouTube Lady Gaga's Bad Romance.
Sure.
But when I cover songs, I only pick songs that like mean something, or I think can be made into something that means something.
Okay.
If you listen to the lyrics of that song, like, you know, the song is like, you know,
I'm very impressed because you put yourself in the spot to remember a lot of stuff, and I'm not even asking you to do that.
I know, but like the way I did it was like, the lyrics are like, I want y'all ugly and I want y'all dizzy. But the way I did it, I slowed it down, and like I sang the lyric. I'm not saying she didn't sing the lyrics, but you can tell it was a pop song,
Sure.
and like was just a radio song,
Right.
But the lyrics were so beautiful and so dark that when I changed it, like changed the key and sing it slower, it was like, I want you ugly and I want
Right.
you dizzy.
It was very deliberate, right?
Yeah, like, you know, and that's different. If you want to like hear a song, like,
Well, yeah, you're not doing it for the sort of kitschy factor that most bands do it, where it's like, yeah, they can't really get a crowd reaction for their own song, so of course they'll cover a well-known song from whoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
okay, I over-explain myself sometimes.
No,
a
no.
lot. 99% of the time I over-explain
It's okay. It's perfect.
I
That's,
over-explain why I over-explain.
right. As Front Porch Step started, you know, you felt more confident, and you're obviously out there from that perspective as far as like, you know, touring. And was it, you know, once you started to get like even a little local recognition, did you feel like it was that switch where like, I can't do anything else, I gotta chase this down? Or was it like, well, I don't really have anything else going on? Like, what was your mentality?
I didn't really think I was that good, because people still, collectively, people still in my town don't give a shit about me.
Okay.
I go to Cincinnati or go to Cleveland and I have to sign autographs, which I don't expect that in my hometown. But I'll play a show in Columbus and 12 people will show up.
Sure.
It bothers me because, like, you know, I stopped. I thought it was because I played so much, because I used to play in people's backyards, and I stopped taking my guitar places because I was like, you know, I finally realized. I take them to my friends' houses,
Right.
but like to people inviting me to parties, I don't bring my guitar because, like, you know, if you're not going to come to my shows, you're going to fucking pay me to play your party. Then, like, you know, like I'm not your fucking like
Right. In a form of entertainment
I'm
right
not
now.
your
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
entertainment.
Right.
Now it's different if I bring my guitar to a party of a friend that I actually am close with, who comes to my shows and hangs out with me. And most of the time, if I go play parties, I'll just play all covers that I want to play.
Yeah. Well, because it'll be fun for you. Right.
Yeah, it's fun for me. It's not. I don't feel like I'm working.
Right.
But it's so weird. I go to Boston and, you know, 300 people showed up to two different Tilly's performances in Boston, and it wasn't all the same people.
Right.
So it was North Boston and South Boston. So like I go to different areas and people, you know, treat me like a celebrity, which I don't expect that in my hometown.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I can't even get people to show up to see me. Like after I got done with the Acoustic Basement tour in February, right before I left for Warped Tour, I did like, you know, almost like a going away show, you know, at this local bar that I used to do open mic nights. I thought it was gonna be really cool, and like a lot of my friends were gonna show up. Like there was probably like 20 people there, but 7 of them came to see me. Like, you know, the rest of them
Right.
just drinking at the bar.
Right.
And it was so disheartening. Like,
Yeah. You're like, what am I doing? Right.
like, you're like, what the fuck? Like, what's wrong with, like, you know?
Right.
And I think a lot of it is, you know, I don't think people want to accept that the kid they used to make fun of is doing things that thing.
Yeah, it's
like,
great, right?
Because like a lot of fucking metal bands in Ohio, like local metal bands that you could go search on YouTube, Google, and they probably want to come up, talk shit about me all the time, and they don't talk shit to my face. They talk shit behind my back, and then I find out about it. But it's these kids. A lot of kids don't like that I play like 5 chords and got signed to a record label because they think they're metal band that. Not saying all of them are bad,
right?
But like this metal band that, because dude, anybody that knows anything about music knows that you can put 2 of the most talented guitarists, the most talented bassist, the most talented singer, and the most talented drummer in the world in a band, and they could write a bunch of shitty fucking songs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because
that happens.
Your classical talent doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean? You have to have a songwriter, someone that can build the song.
Right.
So they're like, oh, like, yo, I fucking shred. Like, like, I don't understand, like, how my band's on a Warped Tour or something like that. And it's like, first of all, maybe because you're talking shit about somebody on Warped Tour, maybe you're a fucking dick.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't understand why. Because it's not Ohio. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati, Cleveland. A ton of people show up.
Right.
Mad love.
Do you self-identify as Christian, like, for lack of a better term?
Yes.
Okay.
Specify lack of a better term, yes.
Okay. Because and obviously, like you mentioned, you're straight edge. I myself identify with both of those as well. A question I get a lot of the time is not so much from a religious perspective, but why do you feel the need to apply both of those labels to yourself when essentially, obviously, a lot of people look at straight edge and are just like, oh, like, well, yeah, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do these things. Christianity should embody some of those as well. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever questioned you from that perspective on like, oh, why do you have both labels?
My Christianity is weird. There is a lot of weird stuff in the Bible that I don't agree with, and I know that there's plenty of atheists, and because there's a difference between an atheist and then just like there's asshole Christians, there's asshole atheists.
Yep.
There's Christians that are pieces of shit, and they're like they're contradicting, our purpose on earth, stuff like that. And then there's atheists that literally just live like, I don't know if they had a Catholic dad that beat them when they were younger, but they I'm not even being funny when I say that.
Yeah.
They just fucking hate anybody with the name calls himself a Christian, and they live to make fun of you.
Yeah, take you down.
Try to
sure.
Fucking take you down a notch. Consider myself Christian, and I believe in God, and I pray to God, and I thank God for things. I thank God on the credits of my record. I believe in God, the essential God. Sometimes I believe in Jesus Christ. Sometimes I don't, but I always believe in God.
Sure.
Because there's certain things that have happened in my life that have led me to believe in God and think and know in my head that God is real. Now, when I say in my head, it's out of respect for the people that know, quote unquote, I'm using quotations with my hands, that know that God's not real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because everyone, it's all your perspective. And I guess the way, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't see why you should bother anybody. Almost like kind of, I don't think being gay is wrong, and I don't think anybody that's gay is wrong. And the way I look at it is even if it is, how is it different from any other sin in the world? Because the original point of sexual sin is doing anything, outside of marriage. And whether you think that's marriage to a woman or not, these people are basically calling these dudes and these women faggots, and then not being married, and then going to get blown by some girl that night, and acting like what the gay people are doing is a sin and what they're doing is cool. I just try to focus on the love that I believe that is with God, and try to project that as much as possible, and just show love for people, because I think even though I don't think being gay is wrong, even if it is, and I'm just a bad, quote unquote bad Christian, I think there's a lot more things in the world that God gives a shit about than he does but I don't think he gives a shit at all. I don't think it's wrong, because you see there's there's some fucking gay people. There's a lot of gay people that are better parents than a lot of straight people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of gay people that are more loyal to their lover and more better people than a lot of straight people. And so I hate telling people I'm a Christian because they get this preconceived stereotype of what I am. Like, oh, you're a fucking gay basher, like, and I'm not, because I don't think being gay is wrong. But then people are like, well, even if they don't believe it's wrong, even if they don't believe in the Bible, the Bible says man should not lay with another man. So you're contradictory, like, you're contradicting yourself, like you already like ruined your point. You don't make sense. That's what's so weird about the Bible is like I don't know how much of it was written by man, because like even if you never showed me the Bible, I still don't think that I would still not believe in God, because I've had thoughts of not believing in God, and because I'm old enough to think for myself. I'm not brainwashed.
Sure. Even though you were raised in the structure of it, you decided for yourself that God is meaningful.
Yes, in my life, and I'm trying to explain this right. Let's say...
Well, I mean, to interrupt your thought, I would probably imagine it's the same way, like the original question I was saying, where it's like identifying yourself as Christian and obviously straight edge, where it's like, when you say you're straight edge, people immediately think the worst of that movement as well, where it's like, oh, so you beat people up that, drink beer, smoke.
Fuck yeah, I do. Piece of shit.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. But Christian is almost like... But people don't collectively know about straight edge.
It's true.
A lot of people, there's still people that think like straight edge. Like, they're like, yeah, man, like I'm going to be straight edge this weekend.
Right.
Like, and they're not being rude. They just don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
No.
They don't understand that it's for life.
Right.
So, but Christian, like the Westboro Baptist Church and like, stuff like that is like,
of course,
made Christianity like, what it is today.
Right.
And, like not made Christianity what it is. They made the preconceived stereotype of what Christianity is. And then you got motherfuckers like Joel Osteen, which I want to punch that dude in the fucking face. You have these churches that you walk into them, the goddamn preacher's driving a fucking Lexus, like a 2014 Lexus, and there's 52-inch screens all over, and the fucking preacher's reading off an iPad, and there's a bunch of people. Every church should be the size to fit its congregation, and the rest of the money should be put in a fucking bank account and be used to help people. It shouldn't, and keep the church, like, if there's an electrical problem, like, our electric system broke, we're going to need, that keeps the lights on, we're going to need, $1,000 to fix the electrical system, take $1,000 off. They should be going out and they should be fucking, I don't go to church because I can't find a church like this. They should go, give money to battered women's shelters. If they shouldn't ask for money, they shouldn't ask for money in tithe if they're not going to use it for God's work.
Sure.
Whatever. When I consider God's work, I mean going out and going to
helping their congregation, helping their local community.
Yeah,
totally. When a church turns into a business and it becomes like the Walmartification of a church, when it's like their only goal is to keep growing, there's a difference between growing and witnessing, and I think that's probably the distinction that you are looking at, where it's like,
dude, if you have a 50-minute podcast, if I start talking about fucking Christian music, we're gonna have a big fucking problem.
No, for sure.
The episode, if you're a Christian, if you're listening to this and you're a Christian, go look up the Faith Plus One episode of South Park, and it is the most honest representation of what Christian music is today.
Oh yeah.
When I say brainwashed, I mean just as brainwashed as a child who thinks, the next One Direction song should be a good song. Right. It should be known as a good song. Not saying I have anything against collectively One Direction, but anybody that doesn't fucking realize that Simon Cowell picked 5 good-looking dudes that can sing and wrote a bunch of songs for them and put them out in the media and paid millions and millions of dollars for you to think that they're good. Because there's thousands of good-looking kids that can sing that would have been One Direction. You don't have to be Harry Styles. Anybody could be doing what they're doing. Not me, but any good-looking, good singer could have been those 5 kids.
Right.
Same thing with NSYNC. Now, there's people like Justin Timberlake that have a little extra.
Of course.
But you understand what I'm getting at.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with Christian music, is they fucking pay all this money and they use the love of God as like
It's a business plan.
as a like almost like coercion into you buying this music.
Totally.
Now there's a band called Newsboys. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Of course.
Fuck the Newsboys. The Newsboys play this church in my state in Ohio. It's one of the biggest churches, at least in Ohio, maybe in the United States. $70 a ticket, and it sold the fuck out. Mm-hmm. Fuck Tate, fuck Newsboys, fuck DC Talk. I don't give a shit. That's bullshit. $70 is a fucking decent seat to see Elton John and Billy Joel.
Right.
Like, who fucking cares about the Newsboys? But everyone was there buying those tickets just because they have a song like, God's not dead, he's truly alive. Like, fuck you. Those songs mean nothing. Like, now, I've written songs before that are almost Christian-like songs. Like, the song So Help Me God. It's talking about temptation and my love and struggle with Satan and God. But people just take, like, chords or melodies from other songs, and if you write a record, all you need is the push. If you write a record that says, I love Jesus, yes I do, I love him every day. Like, I'm sure there's people that might hear the song, they're like, well, why wouldn't he make that a song?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's so pretty. Like, you're fucking naive and you're stupid. Like, I hate calling people stupid, but I have this issue. There's this church from my fucking town where this guy leads worship, and I used to go to church there, and I'm just disgusted by it. He literally admits to purposely making music to sound like pop hits.
Of course.
To get kids to want to listen to it. So he says it on his record, like, I wanted to make songs that sound like Katy Perry and sound like Lady Gaga. So so kids will hear music they like, but will also be hearing God's word. Of
course.
Like, you're doing the wrong fucking thing. There's a band that no one's heard of collectively in the world. That they're called Her Sweet Autumn Misery. They played like the small tents at like Cornerstone maybe a couple times. No one's heard of them. They don't play anymore.
Right.
People have heard of them, but as collectively in the world, no one's heard of them.
Right.
He has this one song called Searching, and it's so beautiful, and it's the lyrics, the verse are like I want to live out on the road, but I don't have to play guitar because I can sing well on my own. I don't care if I get far because I'm sick of writing songs that are only meant to sell, and I wish that I could meet you not just through these headphones or speakers. I guess I'd love to share a pot of coffee, and it's talking about how like he doesn't want to. He just wants to meet you, and like he just wants to meet people and
wants
love
to have a
them
human
and
experience,
not care about like religion. But he is Christian.
Yeah.
But he's talking about like I don't want to write song, and the biggest lyric in that song he says, "Because you have blood and I have blood, and that's enough." That's a fucking song. Like that's a song.
Yeah.
That's not. Like,
that's not pandering.
Jesus, you're my
Lord,
love
right.
with all my heart. Like it's just. If someone wrote a song that said, I love you, girl. I love you with all my heart. I love you every day. People are like, dude, that song's like so cliche. That's played out. But somebody writes a song that says, I love Jesus. And people are like, damn, like that's so beautiful. It's so meaningful.
I got to get behind that.
It's so meaningful. What it is like, and I'm probably using literally in the wrong sense of the word. Don't give a shit. I'm going to say it anyways. Literally, it's like Kim Jong-un putting out a record that says, I love Kim Jong-un, and everyone in fucking North Korea, like, I have to buy this album.
Of course.
Like, I have to buy this album. It's the same thing. People hear I love Jesus, they're like, that are Christians, that are, because if God's real, and he created us, and this is for my atheists, putting out a big if,
right.
If God's real and he created us, or whatever, why would he make us free thinking if he didn't want us to think? Like, you know what I mean? If he didn't want us to doubt him, if he did make us, and he didn't want us to doubt him, why would he make us able to doubt?
Sure, of course.
Like,
we'll just be robots.
I don't think God cares if we go out and like think of different things. Like, what if God's not real? And I don't think he cares, if that makes sense. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
Like
Well, no, I could tell. Well, I could tell it's meaningful to you because you, even though you obviously identify it and you label yourself it, you've obviously had a lot of thoughts, I mean, pro and con, which is good because
Some days I don't believe in God.
some people say you do.
Some days I don't believe in God.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes I don't. But most of my life, I've always gone back to believing in God.
Yeah.
And
Right, and that's why it's meaningful for you. You don't obviously the baggage of the negative connotations that come to the religion in general. That's what puts you off. But ultimately, you can't deny the positive effects that it's had on your life, and that's ultimately what's going to guide you.
And the big thing is, I'm not against people being Jewish. I'm not against people being Muslim. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't mean to be ignorant, but I don't have a problem with people being Buddhist, because here's the way I look at it. I left out a part. That song's called Searching because he says, because we all are searching. We all are searching. And we're literally just all on this life, regardless if there's God, we're all just searching for purpose.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah, We're just trying to figure out what the hell we're here for. We're trying to figure out what to do, like whether, who we're going to love, if we're going to love, 'cause some people don't believe in marriage, and that's tight. Do what you want. Some people just want to fuck all the time. Do what you want. But what I'm saying is, the people that hate on people that believe things, because there's just as many. If you don't think there's just as many atheist religion bashers as there is gay bashers in the world, then you're very fucking blind.
Right.
Because Christianity is still the number one religion in the world, but there's people that are just mean to people just because they're Christian.
Yeah.
And I know that happens in racism, and I'm not saying that we're a minority at all.
Right.
But the way I look at it is that, let's say that all gods are fake. God is fake, Jesus Christ is a myth, all this stuff, we're all wrong. But let's say and someone knows that for sure. Like an atheist, he knows we're all wrong.
Right.
Why would you think that? If somebody has something in their heart and in their life that is keeping them going and believing them, like a child believes in Santa Claus, or a child believes in the Easter Bunny, or like a child believes in angels, what right do you have to try to take that from them? Whether it's Buddha or Allah or God or whatever you want to believe in, what do you have? Because I'm sure there's an atheist homosexual person somewhere that makes fun of people for believing in God, and while they argue, why are you against me marrying my husband? We're not bothering you. Why are you against me? Now, I know that Christians are one of the reasons that gay people aren't allowed to get married in most places. I understand that. What I'm saying is people are hurting they're hurting their cause. Just like I see a lot of black people on my Facebook talking shit about white people and talking shit about, it's the same thing. We're just going to create a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. Unless we start learning to love people and stop, hating people collectively. Because an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I know a kid. He's not my friend anymore. He used to be my friend. I know a kid whose aunt is she's literally insane. She's in an insane
asylum, sure.
But yeah, she was raped in the Navy by two black people, and I met her one time. Mm-hmm. Dude, she has all these Viking books and Nazi books, and she's
sure.
She's completely really racist.
Sure.
She wears shirts that have Hitler on them. Mm-hmm. And I guess there was a black person that lived there once, and she shit and pissed in a bucket and threw it on him. Ugh. Yeah. And she hates all black people because of those two black people.
Right.
Now, if she could have met somebody, and I'm sure there's homosexuals that fucking hate Christians.
Yeah.
But if they would have met me first, or met someone someone like me that believes in God, but believes that you should be able to do what you want, and
sure.
They might have a different opinion on Christianity.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing as these, white people being racist against black people. Not all white people are racist. I'm pretty sure racists are becoming the minority in the world. Not white people, but racism. They're still out there, but I mean, how the fuck do you think racism is a huge part in the world when you have a black president? And I'm not saying that racism isn't there and
right.
not a huge part in the world, but I'm saying I know I contradict myself there, but I'm saying, how do you think all white people are so fucking hateful of black people? Because there's not enough black people in the world to vote in a white president. There's not.
Yeah.
If all white people voted for Romney and all black people voted for Obama, it'd be a fucking landslide.
Right.
So there's white people that voted for Obama. There's tons of them. Thousands upon thousands of them.
Right.
Or there wouldn't have been even an election. And it's the same thing with, Christianity. It's like, there's good people and bad people and all that claim things. And that brings me back to straight edge. This is a circle, I promise. That's how I'm coming back. It comes to straight edge. Is there are people in the world, maybe not now, but there has been in the past, that take baseball bats to people's faces because they smoke cigarettes and they wear an X on their chest, or they fucking, have an X tattoo on, their hands or their legs or whatever. And people, that person that got hit by that baseball bat might fucking hate straight edge people.
Right.
But if they met me, or basically 90% of straight edge people, they would understand that's not the fucking way to go.
Right, that's not the truth.
That's not how straight edge people are.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, I think ultimately, I mean, everybody has their own personal experience with whatever, if it's a philosophical belief, if it's a religion, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, you can't take your one experience and write off an entire sect of religion. You can't write off an entire philosophical belief, because you might have had, like, if you do a deep dive into it, do research, have more than one experience, then that's fine. And you ultimately come to the conclusion that you hate whatever race it is. No one can stop you, like you were saying.
yeah.
But you can't place a blanket statement over everybody that calls himself a Christian, calls himself straight edge, calls himself, Buddhist. Like, you can't just do that. It's ignorant.
Or people saying that, like, Catholic priests are rapists.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to fucking say,
No, right, you're not going to go to bat, right?
No, I'm saying I'm not going to say the Catholic Church doesn't cover up this
for
shit,
sure.
because it does.
Right.
But I'm saying you can't meet a priest and be like, this priest is a rapist.
Of course.
Because
Yeah,
there would be a huge, if every priest was raping kids, like, there would be, we would know about it.
Right.
Now it's easy to cover up certain incidents, but because like, if a girl that goes out to a party and gets drunk gets raped by a man at a party, which is very not a common thing, but I'm saying it's a very,
it happens.
If you're like, people wouldn't be shocked to be like, oh my God, like, that person, you were raped by a man at a party. But like, I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying that's a thing that happens.
Yep.
Those girls are scared to speak out against it or tell anybody it happened because of how horrible and gruesome and how humiliating rape is. What makes you think, a fucking young boy who gets raped by someone he looks up to,
of course,
would go and talk about it?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, it's easier to cover up. But I think if every priest was raping young boys or girls, it would be something known about.
Yeah.
And
but yeah, no.
But I'm saying, but my point is not all people. I guess why I talked about this so much because I have a big problem with the Catholic Church and the way they talk about things and the way they, just like I do with a lot of churches. But the Catholic Church just happens to be one
entity,
collective thing that I can speak out. But it's just, man, people, there's just so much hate in the world, and it kills me. Like, I tweeted the other day, and it wasn't to get, like, retweets. It was just my way of, like, saying it so people would hear it. I said, I wonder what would happen if people dying of thirst received a drop of water every time somebody posted a hateful comment on the internet.
Right.
Like, they'd probably drown if that happened.
Sure.
Like, they probably, in a bad way, they probably drown and
Yeah,
die.
yeah.
But I'm saying, my point is, it's like, why do people hate so much? Like, why is there so much hate in the world? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And, I just don't get it. I don't understand why people are so mean.
Yeah.
I don't understand why there's people that post things about people with Down syndrome and with autism. And recently in Ohio, someone told a kid that he was going to do the ALS challenge, and he was so excited. It makes me want to cry. He was so excited, and they dumped a fucking bucket of piss and shit on him and videotaped it. You can look it up on the internet. I think it's world news now, but it happened in Ohio. And, like, what brings people to do that? And that collectively is why I believe in God.
Sure.
Not because God would let that happen, because there's so much evil and hate in the world that I feel like there has to be some answer to it.
Yeah, there's got to be a light to
There's
that.
got to be a light to the dark, and not to say, be cliche or like
No, it's
be cheesy when I say there has to be light for the dark. But how can people hate so hard?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Now, when I said earlier I hated my dad's wife, but it's because she's caused so much pain that I can't. But like I said, if my dad, I know not all white women are like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I know I know not all dads who parents get divorced. I know not all dads are shitty people.
Right.
Because my friend Nick is one of the best fathers in the fucking world, and unfortunately, his fucking the mother of his child was on fucking Jerry Springer.
Oh,
and like not with him, but
right.
with another dude. Like, oh, I'm fucking this dude, and like and she does fucking crystal meth now. Like and he's one of the best parents in the fucking world.
Right.
So I'm smart enough to know that it's not, it's just she did so much pain to me. So I say hate, but I don't hate her. I would never wish death on her. I just don't want to be near her.
Yeah, of course.
I want to keep the bad out of my life.
Right.
I could talk for hours about hate and
Yeah. Well, no, but ultimately the positive force that you're trying to put out in the world is obviously it's through music, it's through love, and it's through the interactions that you have with people who pay attention to you, and that's the most fulfilling thing that you can put out there.
Yeah, dude, the people that talk shit about me on the internet or the bands that talk shit about me,
It's irrelevant to you.
No, but anybody that knows me, like thinks those kids are so dumb because, especially if we want to be specific, if I found a band, you can only do so much. I'm not a record exec, but like if I found a band that I liked and they were great kids, like I would love to give them tips because, dude, I may not have been doing it for a long time. I know I'm only 22, but I've learned so much. Like once you get signed and do one tour, do a real tour like with Never Shout Never or like fucking something sponsored by Vans Warped Tour with the Acoustic Basement, where you do a real tour that's put together by professional people. You learn 10 years of high school, like
in a year's worth of touring for sure,
worth of knowledge that you didn't know before you did that tour.
Right.
And these kids, like, there's bands that have played, I have friends, dude, that I get arguments because I'll try to help, they're older than me, they're like, almost to the 30s, and they're in a band, and, they're playing local shows. I try to give them advice, they're like, hey, man, like, I've been doing this for a while. And I want to be like you, I can't be rude, but I want to be like, why the fuck am I doing better than you?
Right.
And I don't mean that in a rude way, but
literally,
why am I doing better than you?
Right.
If you've been doing it for 20 years, why aren't you winning Grammys right now?
Mm-hmm.
If time is all it takes,
like
why aren't you winning Grammys? 20 years, that's tight. Like,
totally.
Why didn't you do Warped Tour? It's about, and I try to tell these kids, one of the reasons, because people listen to my music, they're like, oh, his music sucks. How is he on Warped Tour? Because I'm very respectful when I speak to people. I don't kiss people's asses, but I treat them like human beings.
Yeah.
I'm nice to people. I don't go talk shit about bands,
of course,
like a lot of people do. Like, dude, the other day, Jesus Christ, let me say this really quick. I tweeted I'm gonna paraphrase. I said, if you consider 5 Seconds of Summer pop punk and have never listened to Homegrown or Hollister, you really need to reevaluate your life. And what that meant was, if you consider that pop punk,
check this
you
stuff
need to
out.
go listen to some drive-through records like pop punk, because they're not really pop punk. I said a genre. I didn't say 5 Seconds of Summer's bad. I've heard like 2 of their songs.
Yeah.
I never said they're bad, dude. I've received so much hate tweets from 5 Seconds of Summer, like 14-year-old fans that did not read the fucking tweet right.
Right.
Dude, it's so it's so funny because they don't understand that there's no difference in me saying, if you guys think Led Zeppelin is rap music, you need to go listen to Tupac because that's rap music.
Right.
You guys have your genres mixed up. People no one would be like, oh, are you talking shit about Led Zeppelin? Like,
right.
I'm just saying, I don't think that they're that genre. I think they're a different genre. I never said they're not talented. They're not even the best band in the world. I never said that. Like, I think Whitney Houston is the greatest singer that's ever lived. Whitney Houston is not pop punk.
Right, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think I cried. I bawled when Whitney Houston died.
Sure.
Because I wanted to see her live so bad. It was my goal in life. And she died.
And you'll
I
never
fucking
get that.
cried my eyes out. I was more excited than anything in the world. People will just hate for
Yeah,
no
yeah,
reason.
for no
People
reason.
are so ready to hate. My point is, people are so ready to hate that they blindly see shit and they'll
Sure.
just hate you.
Right.
And you know,
Just take the time. Take a second.
yeah, just
Breathe.
reread what you just fucking read.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
It's just, dude.
I know.
People metaphorically like have their fucking guns cocked and fucking finger on the trigger, and you know, waiting just to shoot someone. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know,
Well, you're
holster your fucking weapon, put your safety on.
right.
Like let's
Breathe. Yeah, take a minute.
breathe for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like, you know, defend yourself if need be,
Right.
but you don't.
Take a minute.
Yeah, just fucking calm down there, Chief.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I pulled a cork off you, and we were able to go in places you haven't gone to before in a long time. So I appreciate you doing this, dude.
No problem, man.
It's
been
been
awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So that was a conversation, right? I felt bad because honestly, we probably could have gone on for another like 30 minutes. But for one, I had to go. For two, we were in a recording studio, and the engineer was kind of like, "Okay, guys, I'm back from my lunch break. Are you around? You ready to record again, Jake?" So, anyways, I apologize for the overly nasally voice as well, because the sickness that I've been battling for like 2 weeks, I think, is trying to take me over at this point, and it sucks. So I apologize. But Tom Richfield, as always, is his producer of the show and the confidant and just general morale booster of this show. And I can't thank him enough for that. So visit 100 Words Podcast, visit propertyofzach.com. In the next week or so, I'm going to be recording the year-end extravaganza episode. This is one of the most downloaded shows of the year, where myself, Jeremy Bowen from Touche Amore, and Joey Cahill, the owner of 613 Records, talk our favorite records of the year. Everyone loves lists. Everyone loves discussions about records, so be prepared. I think we're going to be releasing that the week of December 9th or 10th, so get all of your lists in order. So anyways, until next week, be safe, everybody.